so now the site, I mean, we call it campus. I don't know, campus, maybe too big a word. Hopefully one day it will be a campus, but now it's a place, very interestingly, to the extent that it's the place where you produce and you think at the same time. It's not you have a museum in Paris and a production somewhere in the province and an office somewhere else. It's really together. So the thinking and the working, the presentation, the analysis, all that is in the same place. And that people can come to the site, they can't see the production, but we have a little show production of the lounge chairs so they can see how a product is done, but they can see, of course, exhibitions. They can, there are a library there, there are the collections, there's the architecture, one can buy products, one can walk around, there are workshops for the kids, one can do nice trips around. Do come if you haven't been. It's really fun to spend half a day there. And fortunately, other people think that too. We had, since March, we had 300,000 visitors. I mean, we couldn't believe it because we were expecting a bit more than before, but it was really, it was fantastic. And new things will come, hopefully when economy is good, new buildings, new activities. We have lots of ideas, but it needs good types for that. Good times, yeah. How does this sort of this balance act function economically? I mean, that's always the question. How does it work? And it works somehow. I mean, we've been doing that for many years, and we're still there. And I think it has to do with that the cultural aspect is not something you say, now we do something on top. It's not something where we say now we can afford it or we want to show that we are good citizens or something. It's absolutely not patronage. It's not nothing of that kind. It's an economic model where the cultural is an integral part of what we do. It's not something we question. For instance, last year we had a terrible crisis. We lost 30% of our business. I mean, the turnover went down. It was a disaster. I mean, now it's better for us. So I kind of smile about it, but it was really tough. But it was not the idea now we cut the cultural stuff, because that is not so important, because it's so woven into the fabric. I don't even know how to do that. And because it's woven into, I think that's why this long dream lasts, and I hope it can still last. And it gives really also rewards. That's why it can last. I mean, a design company like ours, 95% works like any other. I mean, we have to pay bills. We have our sorrow. Like last year, we are worried. Things don't work as we think. Products don't sell as we think. All these things are like every other companies. But then there are the little differences, and I think one is that this trust in the designers leads really to a slightly different perspective, and I think you do deeper things, and which then last you go through a crisis, but then you see it comes up. Or the Eames had this guest host idea, which is very helpful. It sounds trivial, but I say it anyhow. Think always when you do something that your vis-a-vis or your client or whatever is your guest. Think like a host who has guests. And if you think of the other as a guest, you anticipate the needs. And if by anticipating the needs, you do something, you don't want to disappoint your guests, do you? So you think in a completely different way. If you do market, it's maybe also a form of marketing, empathy marketing or whatever. But it's a very different process than if you say, I want to sell this guy something. Now, how do I get him to buy it? Whether he's disappointed afterwards is not so much my problem, but I want to get him now. So I think that Eames lesson was very, 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 very helpful. Another is, Eames called it love investigation. It sounds really romantic, but it's a method of doing things because you're passionate about them and not because you think of an immediate result. Of course, if you never have results, you give up. But I think this way of thinking that we learned from Eames really gives you a lot of energy, and afterwards you get results mostly. And mostly better results than if you just stare at the result. And also, I mean, the identification of the people working with Vitra is usually quite strong, because there is not the feeling I work for the owners or the boss or something, but it's mostly I work for a cause, and that gives a lot of energy. And also, I think knowing the history of our digging deep helps you also to make products that last longer. For instance, for us, this time horizon is very important. Some of our products have an incredibly long life. I mentioned before, we do products that were made in the 20s, and we have continued on products for 50 years. And I think this perspective of looking at our collection, the best things that have been done, you think twice before you bring out the product, and you get slower, which is fine. But if you do something, mostly it lasts. And again, that helps. And of course, the long-lasting product is very interesting economically. I mean, if you do 50 years same product, this is very good economic, and it's very good ecologically, because I mean, we give, for instance, on our aluminium chairs, I think we give a 30-year guarantee. I mean, I think that's an ecological, maybe better ecological statement than thinking of what is exactly into that material, because if it lasts 30, 40, 50 years, maybe it has done a good ecological service as well. Of course, another completely different aspect is branding. And I think, again, if you want it to brand and you do these things like asking a PR agency, let's do something with design because that will bring us good PR, maybe you don't get it. But if you do it over the years, you get very, very good PR, and it helps greatly also in your branding. You have much less expense than others in this field. And generally, we are very economical